So in the last slides, in the last part of the presentation, we were talking about some of the differences between formative and summative assessments. So I wanted to give you some examples of what exactly formative assessments and summative assessments are, so this might give you a better understanding. So formative assessments can include things like a project, again, which can take a lot of different forms. These can include group projects or collaborative learning. An experiment can be a form of formative assessment. The development of a product, some kind of performance, again, where there's some kind of practice and feedback so that the performance is improving. There's community-based experiences like service learning, an exhibition, a case study or a critical incident, clinical evaluation, an oral exam or presentation, an interview, comprehensive exam, where again the students are given an opportunity to demonstrate learning, get feedback, and then improve performance, as well as a portfolio. Summative assessments tend to be things like midterm exam, a final project, a paper, or recital. However, I would argue that you can put paper into the side of formative assessment if, again, there's opportunities for drafts, or if students are doing the paper in parts as opposed to just a one kind of end paper. So as a result of the differences of assessment, and especially if you're trying to promote some of that more educative approach to assessment, make sure you differentiate feedback from assessment, that you're giving students points along the way where you're informing them about their performance and where they need to go, rather than giving them a grade with no opportunity to improve. Make the focus on learning and not just summative assessment. So again, don't stress grades, and grades are important, but don't stress grades over the actual learning that students are doing. Encourage students to reflect on their learning and experiences in class. So given the opportunity, students would really benefit from having more time to think about what they've learned and how this fits into their schema, other experiences, their future plans. And I think that's a really important part of assessment and learning that's really skipped over a lot, this reflection on learning and experiences in class. Also, another part to consider with assessment is this idea of prior knowledge, and this will help you think about where your students are when they arrive in your class, because students may be coming from various backgrounds, may have had a lot of different experiences. So you can consider assessing your students' prior knowledge before giving out your assessments. Again, they come to class with a variety of learning experiences and different backgrounds, and these are all things that should be taken account when you're planning your assessments. And I think it also helps you to differentiate and meet the students' needs when you see where they are, or if maybe it's just a few individual students who need a little bit more information or practice. So when you're assessing prior knowledge, there are a couple of things you can consider. You can consider what facts or concepts the student should know about the class, what procedures and steps should they be familiar with when they come to class. Do they have any metacognitive practices or strategies that they either currently use or should be using for your class? And think about how this knowledge and how these skills are applied in real world contexts in your discipline. Do they fit with what you're actually doing, or is there some way to improve that? We may already have some of our goals and skills necessary for our courses, but we can assess what students know and experience they bring to the experiences that the students bring to our classes, to see how we can possibly integrate their prior knowledge with our objectives in learning. We know that students use their prior knowledge to make connections with new learning opportunities, and that really strengthens what they retain from the class. And we also know that sometimes prior knowledge can also interfere with new learning opportunities. Students may have misconceptions, or they may not be using the best strategies. So this may be an opportunity for you to help them maybe unlearn some of those, or relearn some of that information or those strategies. They may have also learned improper techniques or hold conflicting conceptions or ideas. So it's really important to identify possible gaps or interfering ideas, or even strengths that students possess, which we can build on. And again, these are just some questions you can use to consider. So now I'm just going to talk about a few quick examples of classroom assessments that you can use to really see where students are and get a sense of where they need to go. And these are just quick formative assessments. One of them is from a book by Angela and Cross that came out a little while ago, but it's called Classroom Assessment Techniques, or CATS, and they're just quick assessments that enable you both you and the students to check their comprehension of important information, concepts, and details for your course. So they're not anything in-depth or detailed. They're just really easy to administrate and relatively easy to grade. They can be like 1 or 2 questions. They can be quick multiple choice questions, just to get a sense of some of the general ideas. I also have a list of a few of them that were provided by Angela and Cross and augmented by Haugen a little bit later on. So if you're trying to assess knowledge and skills, some of the things can be the muddiest point, and this is a little paragraph or so that you ask students to reflect on what was the most difficult thing to understand in their learning. There's the 1-minute paper, which asks students to just kind of summarize or talk about the most important ideas in 1 minute. Chain notes are kind of like passing notes. You ask students to write down important ideas or a key term or something, and then they pass that note to somebody sitting next to them and they build on those notes. You can also ask students to generate their own test questions to really see if they understand and then possibly use these in later assessments. You can ask them to focus list or focus listing, where they just list the important things, or even just come up with a 1-sentence summary of what the key information is. You can also obviously use journals and blogs as a form of reflection and self-assessment, which again can be powerful for both students and yourself to see where their learning is and where they need to go. And then you can also have students provide some kind of feedback to you through reactions to instructional methods. So if you have exam evaluations where you're asking students to evaluate how the exam went, you can have a suggestion box in class, or even develop your own personal feedback forms. There's also great resources that are going to be on the wiki that you can use, and these include things like Poll Everywhere and Google Forms, which you can use to get quick assessment from students. So when thinking about assessments, you can think about some of these questions that you can use. What types of assessment do you use in your classes? Do you use any of these types of assessments in your classes? Are you not using any, but you really do envision yourself using some? And you can, again, write this down on the post on the discussion board. You can talk to a peer about it, but it's really a good idea to think about using these assessments. And these are the resources. So thank you for your time and watching, and I look forward to hearing about or reading about what your experiences are with formative assessment.